Okay, so this is the original call from the it's not a cruise ship, it's just one of the cargo ships that ran into the Sunshine Skyway Bridge. I don't know if you remember that, but I was living right here when this happened. I was about 13, and at the time, very impressionable. I remember, because it was so traumatic, the movies I was into was King Kong and Titanic, the original Titanic, that actually looks something like this, the black and white movie.
Calling Mayday, vessel in distress. This is United States Coast Guard, St. Petersburg, Florida. Request your position, nature of distress, and number of persons on board. Over.
This is Jake. All the emergency equipment out to the Skyway Bridge. Vessel just hit the Skyway Bridge. The Skyway Bridge is down. Get all emergency equipment out to the Skyway Bridge. The Skyway Bridge is down. There's a mayday. Emergency situation. Stop the traffic on that Skyway Bridge.
Now, this is the original Skyway Bridge. Okay, it had one span. Okay, so this part here was all concrete, and then in the center, it actually looked like a train bridge, because it was all metal. And we lived on this side of the bridge, and our relatives, our aunts and uncles, lived on that side of Bradenton. And right here on this side, or if you come over across the bridge on this side, over here to the left was a park called Fort DeSoto Park. That's where we were there every Sunday, especially in the summertime. We'd have picnics and go clamming, and my Uncle Don would bring his boat, and he would take us out one by one, out in the water here, right underneath this bridge. I remember looking straight up, and I could see because the car was driving by, because you could see through the metal. It wasn't closed off. It wasn't like a road. You couldn't see through this part, but in the middle where the channel was, where the ships would go through, as long as there wasn't no ships in there, you could just take your boat in there and drop your line and fish. And I remember whenever we used to go see them and go over over to Bradenton, we would drive up this part. We get to that metal part, and I remember driving over the metal part, looking over the window, and you could see straight down and see the water. This bridge was terrifying. I had so many nightmares from this bridge before this catastrophe.
The original Sunshine Skyway Bridge opened on September 6, 1954. It was considered a marvel of engineering. Before the bridge was built, travelers between St. Petersburg and Bradenton relied on the Beeline ferry, which operated from the 1920s to the mid-1950s. It connected Pinellas Point to Piney Point across Tampa Bay, taking about 50 minutes per crossing. While essential, the ferry was slow, weather-dependent, and couldn't handle the growing traffic demands of a Florida.
Look at that thing. It's just, at the time it was the world's longest bridge. It was the biggest bridge in the world at the time. To me, it was I'm telling you guys, I had years of bad dreams from this bridge. When they first built it, it was just the single span, and then soon after they built an exact replica of this span right next to it, and because right here it was just both lanes, two-lane traffic was on this one bridge, and there was just a little thin yellow painted stripe in between, and we were afraid of getting head-on collisions, you know, and it was very narrow. So they built another section, and then, you know, one side was for one way and the other side was coming back. But doesn't it look like a train track there in the middle? And this just sat on this whole center span.
Government officials knew a permanent connection was becoming a necessity. Building a bridge posed major challenges: deep waters, high winds, and shipping traffic. The original Skyway Bridge was a cantilever style, a type of design that used large steel arms to support the roadway. It would span the mouth of Tampa Bay, linking St. Petersburg and Terracea in Manatee County. The total length of the crossing, including causeways, was over 15 miles, with the bridge itself stretching more than 5 miles. The main channel span was designed high enough to allow large freighters and tankers to pass underneath on their way to and from the port of Tampa. Its striking steel frame
Look at that pitch. I mean, it's just like comes straight up. I remember my nightmare was we would hit the bridge, and as we would be driving up, it was such an incline to where we would fall over backwards like that. As soon as we got to the top, we would just fall over backwards. It was terrifying.
Rose sharply in the middle and became a defining visual landmark along Florida's west coast. Initially, the bridge had one 2-lane span, and it operated as a toll bridge. As traffic increased during the 1960s and Florida's population boomed, a second parallel span was added in 1971. Now, the older 1954 span carried northbound traffic. The newer span carried southbound traffic. It would become a vital artery for commuters, truckers, tourists, and travelers passing through Florida's booming Gulf Coast. The MV Summit Venture was a 606-foot bulk cargo freighter built in 1976 by Kawasaki Heavy Industries at its Sakai shipyard in Japan. Registered under the Liberian flag, a common practice for international shipping vessels seeking looser regulatory oversight, the ship was operated by the Hong Kong-based Summit Shipping Company. Designed to transport large quantities of bulk commodities, such as phosphate, coal, and grain, the Summit Venture regularly sailed global trade routes, including frequent stops at Port Tampa Bay, one of the world's leading phosphate export hubs. On the morning of
Also, Tampa was also the leading what in the world? Phosphate and cigars. It was a famous saying back then, you would have a Tampa? Meant, would you like a Tampa cigar?
May 9th, 1980, the MV Summit Venture was inbound, headed to the port of Tampa, where it would take a load of phosphate fertilizer. In order to enter the mouth of Tampa Bay, the ship would need to make a quick stop to Egmont Key, where they would pick up a harbor pilot. A harbor pilot is an expert mariner who boards ships as they approach a port, takes the helm, and guides them safely to dock or anchor. Merchant shipping companies use pilots not only to meet state requirements, but also for their expert knowledge of local conditions, including tides, currents, underwater hazards, and port regulations.
You got to remember, Florida is a cursed state, right? There's just so many bad things that happened right through Florida. Elvis had one of his last concerts in Florida. He left Florida, flew out. I think we had one more show, and then he died. Leonard Skinner, their plane crashed, leaving Florida. You got to remember, Miami is one of the 3 points of the Bermuda Triangle. So, I know this from growing up in Florida. It's a cursed state, let alone that the cops are crazy.
At the helm that morning was Captain John Laro.
That's what we used to call our lead singer in the band, Laro. So if you guys are listening, Chip, Mike, yeah, it's Laro steering the ship. We're in trouble
harbor
now.
Pilot, very familiar with these shallow waterways of Tampa Bay. However, very quickly, visibility had dropped to near zero. Captain Laro
so many
followed
times, I was in my Uncle Don's boat in those waters right there fishing, and I'm talking a little boat. You don't know how many times we almost sank. We would just go be bobbing up and down, and we would come up, and when we came down, the bow would come down, and just one of those little waves would come in the boat and almost sink us. I mean, now we could swim to the shore, it wasn't that far away. Very good swimmers we were, growing up in Florida. I could swim for miles.
For procedures as he attempted to steer the barge through heavy wind and rain. He could tell the weather was only getting worse and visibility near zero. Laro
That's what it looked
navigated
like,
the
too.
Summit venture using radar and charts to stay within the narrow dredge shipping channel that snakes beneath the Skyway Bridge. However, this was no ordinary storm.
He's screwed.
Winds gusted past
He's
60
screwed.
miles per hour, and the torrential rain created a wall of gray so dense the bridge only
You only have to move that ship 1 or 2 degrees to the left or to the right. That's all. Because once you start at 2 degrees, you know, every nautical foot that you move, you go off another degree. You know, you start off 2 degrees, a quarter mile, you're off, 30 degrees. So yeah, that wind only has to blow you just a degree or 2 off course, and you're screwed.
minutes away, disappeared entirely from sight. By the time the bridge came into view, there was little Captain Pharaoh could do. What happened next would live in infamy.
Look at that. I mean, it's just terrifying, isn't it? Look at that. Going up that, all the way to the center part. The center part is just, it's still scary to me, for me looking at that. It's just terrifying.
At 7:38 a.m., the unthinkable happened. With a sickening crunch of steel and concrete, the Summit Venture's bow tore into one of the main support piers. In mere seconds, more than 1,200 feet of roadway collapsed into the churning bay below. Asphalt twisted like paper. Guardrails snapped. On board the ship, stunned silence. On the bridge, shock and disbelief.
Okay, you see, that's the ship that hit it, and look at that's part of the Skyway Bridge on the bow. Okay, that's part of the center span there on the bow of the ship. Okay, now I don't know if you know what a channel is, but in these waters, a channel is like, if you can imagine, a ditch. Okay, in these waterways where these large ships sail in, or not sail, they cruise in. All right, so the bottom of the ocean of this waterway, it's not flat. It goes flat, up and down, and maybe 30, 40 feet. But where these boats sail through, it's a ditch underwater of like 80 feet. Okay, if you can imagine. So when these cars started driving off the bridge, okay, that's why no one survived. First of all, it was a 150-foot drop. It was like hitting concrete. So they just boomed. They would, if they didn't die on impact, they were knocked out. They couldn't, and the cars would just instantly sink. Well, the Greyhound bus that went in, what happened with the bus is it hit right on the side of the channel, and it was slowly sinking into the channel. Half of it was in the channel, but half of it was, was still. Here's what happened, guys. When this happened, 7:30 in the morning, I had just woke up. Exact same time. It was on every channel, every television. I just woke up. I flipped the TV on, and this is what I saw right here. Now the footage that I saw, because I was a local boy here, right there when it happened. They had news helicopters there on the scene within minutes. And I saw the Greyhound bus underwater. I saw people's hands on the windows trying to get out as the bus slowly sank into the channel. They had it on the 7:30 morning news right when it happened. They had it on the noon news. And I was telling everyone, make sure you watch the 5 o'clock news, because where do you see this Greyhound bus? You're never going to get this image out of your mind. And the tape was confiscated. They didn't show it for the 5 o'clock news. They said the tape was too graphic. But I seen it. I saw it right when it happened, and I saw it on the noon news. I can still see it in my mind. People trying to lower these bus windows. I saw white palms on these windows, and large Greyhound bus, and I saw it slowly sink. There was a News Channel 10 or something, helicopter flying right above it, and just sat there till the thing just slowly eased into the channel. Now, the one guy that did die, they're going to say, or the one guy that lived, the only guy that lived that drove off the bridge, they're going to say because he came down with this section of the bridge that landed on the bow of the ship. So they're saying, so that broke his fall. No, what happened was, because I lived there. They had an interview with this guy for, every night for a month. What happened was he had just gotten brand new tires on his truck. So when this section of the bridge fell on the bow, what happened was his truck literally bounced like a rubber ball. It just went boing, and it hit the bow of the ship, and it bounced off the ship and into the water. So he wasn't rescued from this part here. He did end up in the water, but he got out. He kicked out his windshield, and he swam around to the side, and some of the crew from the Venture pulled him out of the water.
Pilot Captain John Larrow stood helpless, his last-minute maneuvers swallowed by the storm's rage. The steel and concrete structure crumpled like straw as it plunged into the channel below. From above, the bridge seemed to have simply vanished, leaving a jagged cliff where roadway had once stretched high above the water. Just seconds after the collapse, unaware of the disaster that had just occurred ahead of them, several cars continued driving toward what they assumed was a solid road. One by one, vehicles drove off the shattered edge, plunging 150 feet into the water below.
Yeah, they didn't know, right? They're in the center part up here. Right up here, like over there on the other side. They're just driving, thinking they're going to Bradenton. Look, the bridge is out, and they just drive off the bridge into instant death. And so did that bus, a Greyhound bus, a bus of like 30 people.
Most devastating of them was the Greyhound bus, which had departed Miami hours earlier and was now headed to St. Petersburg. With 26 passengers and the driver aboard, it launched off the broken bridge like a missile. Witnesses later said it flipped in the air and hit the water nose first, bursting apart on impact. In all, 35 people would lose their lives that dark morning. Only one man survived the fall.
Jesus.
Wesley McIntyre,
Yeah, I know, I've
a
seen it.
56-year-old Gulfport resident driving his Ford Courier pickup across the bridge. As fate would have it, when his truck dropped, it struck the bow of the Summit Venture. The impact likely slowed his fall. He broke through his windshield, swam to the ship, and was hauled aboard by the stunned crew, shaken, injured, but alive. Within minutes, emergency responders, Coast Guard crews, and helicopters scrambled to the scene. It very quickly became clear this mission would be that of recovery, not rescue. The vehicles had vanished beneath the surface of the 80-foot deep waters of the shipping channel. Only a few twisted car parts and scattered wreckage floated to the surface. News of the disaster spread quickly. The story of what occurred at the Skyway Bridge would become a national news story as the families and community of Tampa Bay reeled from the tragedy. The southbound span of the Skyway was destroyed and would never reopen again. The northbound span, completed in 1971, was temporarily converted to carry two-way traffic, a stopgap measure while plans were made for a replacement. An investigation by the National Transportation Safety Board later confirmed that Captain Larrow had done all he could. The storm was classified as a microburst, a sudden downdraft of air strong enough to move ships off course with little to no warning. Captain Larrow was eventually cleared of negligence.
And there was microburst storms all the time in Tampa Bay. It was it's the Gulf there. It's like a cul-de-sac of the ocean. Okay, if you can imagine, it's just we got hurricanes there all the time, and those little sand storms, those sand devils, and all the time. One almost picked me up one time when I was in Fort DeSoto, and so they would, those micro storms, they would hit with such a fierceness, blow a ship off course, or maybe blow your car off the road to where you pull over and you think it's the end of the world. And I'm telling you, by the time it hit, it was gone. It could hit in 30 seconds, and the other 30 seconds, the sun is shining.
Died in 2002, having spent much of his later years battling multiple sclerosis and public perception.
That's the view I saw on the news, right there. Because see, the channel goes through here. This is the deepest part of the Tampa Bay. So the bus came off and fell down here and was laying this way. And I could see the hands in it because the helicopter was flying right above it. And it slowly sank down into the channel. Now they did show the bus a second ago because they pulled all the cars and everything out along with the bodies. And then for the longest time before they built the next bridge, they wanted to leave this here. They wanted to make this side a fishing pier. And everybody was like, no, we're not going to let you fish off it. People died there. And then they're not showing the other end here. Look how much is missing. But where the bridge, what's left of it, where it continues over here, Evel Knievel wanted to jump this gap. He commissioned Tampa Bay, hey, can I pay you? You bring a lot of public publicity, and I want to jump the span of the Skyway Bridge. And it, I don't know, it was up for discussion at one time, and I was in Evel Knievel at the time. I was like, yeah, let's see him do it, but he never did.
The incident had been a wake-up call for infrastructure safety in the U.S. The disaster led to the immediate need for a safer replacement and prompted national changes in bridge design and maritime protection.
These are the pylons for the new bridge
standards. Construction of the new Skyway Bridge began in 1982. The bridge would feature a cable-stayed design, making it...
Which took years. It was just the two-lane, one side of the Skyway for the longest time. They tore this down, this metal section, tore it all the way back down to about like this, down here. It was just this flat part here. And I believed for a short time they did allow fishing from there. Fishermen down in Florida, it's just best grouper fish in the world right here. If you've never had a grouper sandwich, they had restaurants called grouper restaurants just for that fish. And it's my favorite fish to this day.
One of the first of its kind in the U.S. at the time. 21 steel cables fan out from each of the two.
Look at this new bridge, huh? Look at this one. Now it's not as, straight up and down as this old rickety one. And we don't have a metal centerpiece. We've got these lovely gold suspension bands coming by. This was one of the world's first suspension bridges. And the reason that you have these suspension bands here is not because it looks pretty or here's the idea. We've got these two large columns here. The ships, you see them coming in the channel. Okay, that's the channel there. That's the deepest part of the Tampa Bay. It's like 80 feet. So they don't bottom out. Well, if a ship does come here and collide into one of these columns, what's going to happen is it's on these suspension. The bridge is suspended, so it'll just wiggle. It won't fall. That's the idea of the suspension bridge. And at nighttime, these gold suspenders, rope the cables, they light up. It's beautiful.
Two concrete pylons, giving the bridge its distinctive profile. The bridge deck is 190 feet above the water, allowing larger ships to pass safely underneath. It would open for passenger use in 1987 to much fanfare. Over the course of its nearly 4-decade existence, the bridge has been widely celebrated for its aesthetic beauty, especially with its yellow cable stays designed to reflect Florida's sunshine. In 2005, the Travel Channel named the Sunshine Skyway Bridge as one of the top 10 bridges in the world. But along the bridge's approach stands a solemn reminder, a plaque bearing the names of the 35 victims who died that morning in May 1980. They were everyday people, commuters, tourists, mothers.
The day before the brand new Sunshine Skyway Bridge opens, the day before, a shrimp boat, boom, hits one of the columns. I mean hard, too. And they just said it was a good test because the shrimp boat sank and the bridge withheld. No problem. But that's the idea. If something runs into these columns, the bridge will just wobble. Or if you've got a hurricane coming through and then Florida idiots don't close the bridge, or people are still trying to drive around evacuating or something, the bridge is just going to wobble. Like vehicles wobble, but they don't fall down. Sort of thing.
Students, veterans, whose lives were cut short in a moment no one saw coming. The event didn't just change how Florida builds bridges. It changed how the people of the Gulf Coast view the line between safety and
death
chaos,
traps in the
between
world,
routine
maybe.
and catastrophe.
Imagine, at the time, I'm learning everything I can about the real Titanic. You know, the captain, and, his name, and, the rich people that were on the Titanic that really did die, and I'm learning all I can because it's true. I'm just totally into it. I'm like, wow, this is a true story. And then this happens. It was unbelievable, man. I was like looking, my other favorite movie was King Kong. I'm like, now all I got to do is look for this huge gorilla. But I'm telling you, it looks like a death trap to me, man. I'm telling you. So many nightmares I had about this thing. And then it falls. And then there's the end of it. It's the Skyway Bridge as it is today. And then I just wanted to leave you with one picture that I did. Over here, I want to show you this. Check this out. Look at this. Okay, here's the Bay Pang Bridge. Remember the video I showed you last night of the world's tallest and largest bridge in the world. Okay, China just built this, which is good for China because they've been getting hit with a lot of their infrastructure is just falling apart. And, the saying "made in China" just sounds cheap, right? And they do. They cut back on a lot of products, and literally their buildings are falling apart. So the one thing they do right so far is build bridges. They've got like the 4 biggest bridges in the world, and it's just big. If you that bullet train that they've got, if you guys could see, go look at a video of one of where the bullet train pulls into one of their depots. Just one of them. It's like 4 times the size of the Colosseum. Just whenever you think China, just picture just think big in your mind, like half the planet. This bridge is freaking humongous. When they started, okay, let's say they put this pylon in here into this mountain and this one, and they're slowly, there's no bands here yet, they're slowly building the bridge. Well, when they get about to right here, okay, they're like, okay, how are we going to do this middle part? I mean, don't we got to have something on this side to like connect to? What they did is they took rockets and shot ropes across to the other side. It's just incredible, man, how they did this. It's just phenomenal. Just these columns are bigger than, the Empire State Building. Each column has enough concrete in it for 3 Eiffel Towers. There's 6 Eiffel Towers there. It's just, look how high it is. It's in the clouds. And why is it red? Because they wanted it to appear like a dragon in the clouds, a red dragon in the clouds. So, if you see this picture, we've got the Bay Pang Bridge from China, and then look, we've got the Skyway Bridge from Florida. Well, what do they have in common? Well, look, they are both what? suspension bridges. You see? The Bay Pan also has the suspension bridges with the cables. Now, isn't this a beautiful picture? I did this myself with my new MacBook Air with my M1 chip, color enhancing. Look at how beautiful of a picture I did with this. It's just incredible, man. Look at that. It's just phenomenal, man, what I could do with this Mac. I'm telling you, I love it. But yeah, this is the new, and you can see no remnants of the old Skyway Bridge there. The new Sunshine, I don't know why they call it the Sunshine Skyway Bridge, but that technically is what it's called. And what are these little pads here? Of course, they're bumpers, so ships don't hit the frickin' bridge. But they weren't even there when the bridge opened up. And right here, the center span, the shrimp over. Gage. The day before the bridge was about to open. Can you imagine if it would have collapsed again before? Oh my God! And here's the Florida sky there. I mean, born and raised there. I've seen so much of this. I'm sick of it. And then this is just blows my mind. This freaking bridge here. They got an elevator over there in China that goes up to the side of a mountain. It's incredible, man. It's another real huge big thing. And this bridge here is, in fact, in Guinness as the largest bridge. Now, it's not the tallest bridge from here to here, or from here to here. The thing is, the water, the gully is so deep down here. The one in China, it's way down here. The water. So from the water to the road up here, it's the tallest bridge in the world. Plus, I mean, that span. Just look at that. That is one. Look at the from here to here with just them. There's nothing holding that up, guys. There's nothing here, but there's nothing here either. You know, the center spans. You've got them reaching there to here. And this is the same premise. There's not going to be a ship that's going to come by and hit this pylon to where it's going to shake. But they've got major, typhoon winds and shit that are going to shake that bridge. But it's okay. It's on the suspension cable, so it'll just wobble. It'll be like a wibbly wobbly ride. But just a gorgeous picture of my bridges. Look at that. I love it. Yeah, that's today's holler, guys. My terrifying time growing up with this damn Skyway Bridge. And China's new Bay Paint Bridge. Just a phenomenal feat, huh? Mankind. Later.